Can I tell you a quick Bettman story?
Please.
Do you ever remember NHL Live?
What do you mean?
The show. It was like a show between like the hours like
Yeah, it was their version of the Inside the NBA.
Kind of. It was between like 3 and 4 p.m. Monday to Friday. And I remember they'd have like live call-ins, and they had Bettman on the show one time. I'm like 15 years old. I was like, man, you took my Jets away when I was just about born. You've ruined hockey in Winnipeg. I'm going to call in and I'm going to give this guy a piece of my mind. And so you call in, hi, yeah, what do you want to talk about? Hockey in Winnipeg. Okay, cool. They get me on the line. Hi, you're speaking with the Commissioner Bettman. What would you like to talk about? I froze. I just became a pussy on the spot. I was like, oh, hi, Mr. Bettman. Thank you for everything you did. I was so pissed at myself. I'm like, you should have told him how it was that you ruined the city of Winnipeg when you took the Jets away.
So essentially, the reason why Trav is doing this podcast is to make up for that phone call.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it's a lot of trauma built up. That's why we're all here, right? But hear me out for a second. So there was news the other day that Gary went to the board of directors and said, listen, I'm done after this season. I've been ruining Canadian teams for over 30 years.
That's not what he said. That's not what he said.
I'm paraphrasing, of course.
No, he said, I'm old. I've spent 30 plus years. I am going to retire. And good for him. He will retire a multimillionaire.
Well, if you want to, of course he will. He'll be very rich. But if you look at the tenure of his time in the NHL and what he's actually done for the league and for the game, so he comes in at the end of 93. The governors and the owners said, we need someone that's going to help make everything equal, make it more competitive, to grow the game down south as we've tried to do when we sold Gretzky. This is the guy to do it. He's done it in the NBA. Why can't he do it in hockey? So he comes
and
in.
He did.
Hold on. So he comes in, end of 93. You can't count that as his first season because he's only there for the end of the season. 94 is when it starts. The Rangers had just won the Stanley Cup. It took him 1 year to have a lockout. You have the NHL's biggest market that just won the championship, and you've just derailed all this momentum that you had because of it. You have that lockout. Fast forward, less than 3 years later, the Quebec Nordiques have now left, even though he said, I'm going to be an advocate for Canadian hockey. I'm going to help these teams. And he wanted to do basically equalization payments, which, to draw parallels, Pierre-Elliott Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, did that in the 70s, where he said, Alberta has all the resources. You're going to give us some money, and we're going to distribute it around the other provinces and territories that don't have as much money. Gary said, we're going to do the same thing. Well, fast forward to 95. The Nordiques have run out of money. The Canadian dollar was 73 cents on the dollar. Currently, right now in 25, it is 69 cents at the time of recording. The Nordiques left, and they went to Colorado. The following year, the Jets, we ran out of money too. They left. They went to Phoenix, Arizona. So for this advocate for Canadian hockey, you got rid of 2 Canadian teams.
He did put one in Ottawa.
He did put one in Ottawa, yep. But they've had lots of talk of real...
And one back in Winnipeg. So he's even on that one.
Well, he had no choice with the Thrashers. You had this dumpster fire. Who's going to buy it? Well, Mark Chipman, who said, I want hockey in Winnipeg. I'm going to bring it back. I don't care. He was in the building the last day the Jets played and they lost to the Red Wings in 96. He tried to buy the team, didn't have enough funds, couldn't get enough stuff together for the arena. He made it his life mission to bring the Jets back, and he did that.
Well, not only a life mission, but keep in mind, Mark Chipman, for 15 years, he went to Bettman and said, I will prove it to you. When the next opportunity comes up, it's mine. Mm-hmm. And Bettman said, prove it to me. 15 years, built a new rink, NHL minimum seating capacity, filled the barn, was the cream of the crop when it came to the American League. And I know this for a fact because I was working with the American League at the time. Mm-hmm. Every time the American League, and Dave Andrews can attest this, who was the commissioner at the time, every time there was an AHL meeting where all the teams got together, everyone just basically said, okay, let's just hear what Manitoba's doing this year and we'll just copy and paste for that one, because Manitoba, every single American League hockey player said, I would love to play in Manitoba. I would love to play for the Moose. That, if you're going to play in the American League, that is the spot to play. He proved himself, and that's why he got it. It wasn't just I guess we'll give it to Winnipeg. It took 15 years of putting in that hard work to get that team, because they could have gone to a lot of other places. Mm-hmm. They could have gone to Utah. They could have gone to Kansas City. They could have gone to a lot of other markets. But Winnipeg, 15-year investment.
I'm glad you mentioned those things. He gave so much wiggle room, though, to the Coyotes and how many failures they've had going from Phoenix to Glendale to Scottsdale. We couldn't even find a rink, so we went to a college rink where old Trav over here was playing in the Fed and the FPHL, the Federal Prospects Hockey League, going in arenas that were bigger than the Coyotes were. And he still gave them runway to the point where it was like, I don't have any other options. I've tried everything for the last 30 years. I've tried. We have failed. Let's just move them over to Utah, and then we'll bring another team back in 3 years, which is way more runway than he gave the Jets or the Nordiques in the 90s. And then you also have to look at, too, fast forward to 04-05, he is the only commissioner, the only pro sports league in the world that has lost an entire year to a labor dispute. Nobody else has done that outside of this guy. And then he does it again in 2012, 2013, lost half the season. You've lost about 200 games, basically the equivalent of just shy of 2 seasons because of this guy.
Okay. But has it made the players richer? Yes.
Well, hold on for a sec. You had a couple outliers though, like the Bobby Hulls, who were signing $1 million deals when nobody else was because you had unlimited budgets. So the Red Wings and the Leafs and the Rangers could spend as much money as you want. So I'm sure the McDavids today will be getting $30 million a season, the same way the NBA and the NFL are. And then you have the bottom guys who be making the bare minimum.
I disagree. And the reason why is when you have places like the NBA that only has one Canadian team, you have Major League Baseball, one Canadian team. There's a lot
They had
less.
two. They had two at one point.
At one point.
Montreal Expos.
But right now, there's a lot less to worry about when you're only focusing on the American dollar. It's a lot easier to negotiate with one currency than with two, okay? So when it comes to, and look, I'm pretty sure baseball, my stats might be wrong on this, and I'm only including North America, Major League Baseball, highest paid players. Second would be NFL. Third would be NBA. Fourth would be NHL.
Probably MLS before the NHL. Because didn't Beckham sign that $50 million deal?
And that brought the average way up, but there are guys that are only making maybe $100,000 a year playing MLS.
Okay.
There's guys that are not making big money. There's some players that, when they bring in Leo Messi, sure, they're going to pay him through the roof, and hopefully he drags everyone else's salaries up. But when it comes to the actual financial part of the game, the last thing I want to do is defend Gary Bettman. The last thing I want to do, because he took the Jets away, and he's done Canada dirty a little bit.
A lot.
But when it comes to the owners and it comes to growing the game, he brought the league from 28 teams up to 32 at least.
Oh, more than that.
Players are making more. Owners are making more.
Hey, if you enjoyed this video, hit the subscribe button. We do a new podcast every single Sunday during the season called Sling the Biscuit. It is a non-mainstream hockey podcast, so we talk about my hockey career, the minor pros, Spain, the Fed, you name it, all the stuff that you won't hear in the mainstream news.
Music,
Pop culture.
politics, a little bit.
Thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you soon.